An internal watchdog has found that Environmental Protection Agency appointees from the Trump administration deliberately weakened the toxicity assessment of PFBS, a type of PFAS compound. Now, PFAS, you've heard of this compound before, I'm sure. It's what makes your nonstick pans nonstick, for example, and it's often referred to as a forever chemical in that it never breaks down. That means that instead of dissipating, it spreads and it accumulates in the bodies of humans and animals, including you. It's estimated that 99.7% of Americans have PFAS in their blood. So how does it spread? The plants that produce this stuff dump their runoff into waterways that feed our drinking systems. And it's not just us. PFAS spreads so easily via waterways that they've been found in blood samples of people taken from across the entire globe. Of course, they can have a ton of negative impacts on our health, specifically damage to our liver and kidneys, and increased chances of infertility, cancer, and thyroid diseases. These impacts can get worse with every generation as the concentration of PFAS in our blood and water continues to accumulate over time. So then you think, why does it continue to accumulate? Why is it still being produced and dumped into our water? You already know the answer. It's capitalism. It's DuPont, the company that produces this stuff. And its collusion with regulatory and governmental agencies. First thing you have to know about our environmental regulation is that it operates a little backwards. You would think that before a chemical is released into the world and into people's bodies that the chemical would have to be proven safe, but the opposite is true. Instead, the EPA can't really step in to regulate anything until it has been given evidence that the chemical is potentially harmful. If chemical companies aren't handing that data over, then the EPA can't do much. PFBS, a type of PFAS, are toxic at low levels. According to the EPA, the agency's January 2021 PFBS toxicity assessment demonstrated unprecedented interference by the Trump-appointed EPA chief, Andrew Wheeler, and other Trump appointees.
This man wants to deregulate. This is an outrage. Shut down Wheeler. Nothing is.
Please restore order in the committee room.
The former chief ordered an alteration of the PFBS toxicity value just prior to the assessment being published in 2020. The altered version of the report was published the following year, just days before Trump left office. According to a March 2023 report on the interference, quote, the EPA did not follow the typical intra-agency review and clearance process during the development and publication of the January 2021 PFBS toxicity assessment. During final clearance, a political appointee directed that a last-minute review be conducted of the uncertainty factors used to calculate toxicity values, resulting in a scientific disagreement that caused delay, confusion, and significant changes to the near-final peer-reviewed work product. It goes on to say, quote, while EPA staff expressed scientific integrity concerns about the last-minute review and risk to public health, the EPA lacked policies and procedures to address these concerns. Without updates to policies and procedures, the agency cannot fulfill its commitment to scientific integrity and information quality. The assessments are issued to establish quality standards for drinking water and environmental cleanup regulations for large companies, but Wheeler's EPA didn't establish a standard target toxicity value. Instead of a target, it issued a range, meaning companies could choose to leave a higher amount of toxic chemicals in the environment if they wanted to. This was presumably done in the interest of cost cutting, because why would a corporation choose to spend more money on environmental cleanup than it's required to? The Biden administration pulled the report just a few weeks after it was released, but the whole ordeal raised questions and concerns regarding political appointments, career scientists, and regulation within regulatory agencies. In the case of the 2021 PFBS assessment, the original assessment had been put together by the Research and Development Office at the EPA. The career scientists use what are called uncertainty factors to fill in gaps where data might be insufficient or unavailable. For instance, studies on how PFBS affects the thyroid and neural development were unavailable, so the EPA scientists had to use whatever relevant data was available to them to make educated recommendations. The assessment was then peer-reviewed twice and reviewed twice by the EPA's Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention. But then, after all of that intra-agency work, the Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention that had just reviewed and signed off on the assessment under direction from political appointees inserted alternative uncertainty factors just days before it was published, meaning there was no time for the new numbers to be vetted and reviewed and approved. But you can't just blame it all on a Trump appointee, right? Who were the scientists who altered the report at Wheeler's behest? 3 career scientists with the EPA are in question regarding their involvement in the alterations, including 2 who had previously been accused of altering scientific documents to make chemicals appear less toxic to appease players in the chemical industry. One employee did oppose the changes, arguing that the report was already in its final form, but that employee was told by a Trump appointee that they wanted to publish the assessment before Trump left office and that Wheeler wanted to discuss the assessment in an upcoming media interview. There wouldn't be any time for the standard review process, which Wheeler was totally fine with. Of her colleagues' involvement in making the changes, the employee said, quote, "Career staff report to political leadership, and they were directed to make these changes. It was a very tough position for them to say no because that would have been insubordination." The EPA took a similar stance, defending its longtime employees. In a statement to The Guardian, they said, quote, "The political appointees who engaged in interference, not career staff, should be held accountable to restore public trust in the government." Some believe that the scientists should have fought back harder against their politically motivated directive, but that's much easier said than done when someone's entire livelihood is at stake. The problem is bigger than a handful of employees, though, and it literally affects every single one of us. Without better policies in place regarding political appointments and without real consequences against the purveyors of such dangerous falsehoods, the fear is that similar situations will arise in the future. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe to the channel and be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.